Hey, Dog Nation, how are you? Welcome into Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. I'm happy to have you with us. I'm Brandon Adams, the entire Dog Nation team on hand. Mike Griffith, Jeff Sintel, Connor Riley, all on the way. Also, our buddy Dari Payro there as well from R.S. Andrews. Make our picks for the upcoming week's worth of games. If you've never joined us before, here's how it all works. So we'll make our picks against the spread. You'll hear from all of us, and Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they have a chance to weigh in there as well. And once everyone's given their thoughts, a consensus has been formed. And so we ask then Dari Payro if he wants to go with the flow and join that consensus for those upcoming games. And that's how it's played around here. And we'll invite you to do the same thing with us here. Of course, all brought to you by our friends at R.S. Andrews. It's been cold at night as of late. And so when you think about R.S. Andrews, one of the things I want you to think about is how you stay warm here this winter, especially if you have a heating system that's on its last legs. Listen, go ahead and let R.S. Andrews breathe some new life into that unit for you. They can give you the mega tune-up, just $99. That'll get your system back to factory fresh specs. So make sure you check out R.S. Andrews for more on that today. The website to turn your attention to is rsandrews.com. It's not just heating units, it's plumbing issues, it's electrical issues, it's all that kind of stuff. With a lot of folks coming over to the house this time of year, you want everything working just properly there in your home, and that's obviously what R.S. Andrews can do for you. Keep that water flowing through the pipes, electricity flowing through, whatever it is that electricity flows through. Just keep it all working the way that it's supposed to. That's what R.S. Andrews can do for you. That's also, by the way, why we call the show Go With The Flow here on the Dog Nation video channels there as well. We'll make our picks for the upcoming week's worth of games. We'll start with clean old-fashioned hate, Georgia and Georgia Tech. We will do that in just a moment. Before that, though, let's get an update on how things are going thus far for the season. We'll take a look at these standings here right now that show you the story of the year. And some folks start to fade just a bit. Others continue to stay strong. Connor Riley still on top of the season-long race here at 55 and 45 on the year. I didn't match him for the week last week. We were both 5 and 3, but I'm still a couple of games behind him in the overall standings there on that. And obviously after that, you got a lot of other folks kind of coming up from behind. Dari Payro, 3 and 5 on the week at 51 and 49 on the year. Mike Griffith, Jeff Sintel, a little bit of a struggle last week. Mike 2 and 6, Jeff 3 and 5. That puts Mike at 48 and 52 on the year, and Jeff Sintel at 44 and 56 on the campaign. But for the most part, you got 3 guys over 500 right now for the season-long standing. So if you're following these picks, for the most part, you're doing pretty well with all of that. With that said, rivalry week makes for a big slate of games. We'll make a lot of picks here this week, and also the kind of games that you typically kind of feel like could go really in any direction. So Dari Payro, as I often do, I'm curious to get your thoughts on how you feel the week's going to go here and how you, overall, your feelings about this card.
This is always one of the greatest weekends. You get a lot of rival games. There's some pretty good ones with some implications, on the slate. Some of these are kind of some pick'em type games. Some I have a pretty good feel, but we'll see. I need to run the table.
Well, there you go. Dari looking to get back in the action here and make his way back to the top of the standings before the season is done. Let's begin our slate here in Atlanta. Georgia Tech hosting Georgia. Obviously, these two teams did not play in 2020 as the SEC chose a conference-only slate because of the global pandemic. The last time that Georgia played Georgia Tech, it was blowout fashion for the Dogs there in Atlanta, and Bobby Dodd Stadium will once again be the venue on Saturday. Tech stares a third consecutive 3-win season in the face if they lose here on Saturday. Georgia looks to stay in Atlanta for 2 consecutive weeks with the SEC championship coming up against Alabama the Saturday after this one. So obviously bigger things on the horizon for UGA, but still plenty of motivation for the game known as clean old-fashioned hay. Georgia also a gigantic favorite here, 35 points on the road. Mike Griffith, will start with you. What do you think about Georgia going to Georgia Tech as a 35-point favorite?
Yeah, a lot of mixed feelings on this one. Disappointing. Georgia 7-7 with Charleston Southern after halftime, didn't cover the spread. That's a tough one to lose when you play an FCS team even at home the second half, even if it's your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th strings. Charleston Southern was awful. The flip side, though, is I do think in this final warm-up game or the final preseason for the postseason, I think Kirby's aware that Alabama and Ohio State are scoring points, and I think he recognizes that the Georgia passing game probably needs some work. And therefore, I do think that the floodgates will open. I do think we'll see a lot of throws from Stetson Bennett, maybe from JT Daniels as well, especially with the news that George Pickens is refamiliarizing himself with the playbook. That would lead me to believe Kirby believes he's going to play at some point, if not now, later. But because Georgia needs to get the pass game going, get the jet engines fired up, I'm going to pick them to cover the spread against Georgia Tech.
So, Mike, on the side of UGA here, Jeff Sintel, you're next up. Tech getting 35 at home, a place they haven't beaten Georgia since 1999.
Yeah, clean, old-fashioned, easy pick here. I think Georgia will have 28 points midway through the second quarter. I think they cover this one easy. Give me Georgia in a big one this weekend.
So the scribes all over UGA. Connor, your thoughts there on Georgia as the 35-point road favorite?
Jeff Collins is Jeremy Pruitt in blue. I think this Georgia Tech team quit last week against Notre Dame. It was 45-0 at halftime. And that's not a team you don't want to play Georgia the week after doing that. I think Georgia's going to run it up. I think they like winning in Bobby Dodd Stadium, Mark Richt Field, whatever you want to call it. And I think they're going to win pretty comfortably on Saturday against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Dog Nation Daily Listeners and viewers all over that there as well. 97% on the side of UGA here. This has not been a team that's exactly been dominant against the spread last few weeks, but I am going to take Georgia in this spot nonetheless because – listen, in a blowout win, sometimes especially high variance games with very big spreads, who knows what's going to happen. But if there's the chance for the extra score late, Georgia probably against Georgia Tech, I think looks to take that there. That's enough for me to like Georgia minus the 35, although I've now gone against the dogs against the spread, I think, the last 3 weeks. So that's been profitable the last 3 weeks, but the time to go the other direction is now against Georgia Tech. So it takes a lot for me to lay big lumber, but in this particular case, I'm going to do so minus 35. I do like UGA here and like them pretty comfortably. Dari, that puts not just the flow on the side of Georgia, but it's a clean sweep in favor of the dogs. Do you want to go with the flow and take UGA?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to run it back with Georgia. Last week was a lot of points, monster number. They didn't get it done. This week's still a really big number with five touchdowns as a point spread. But I think Georgia's best team in football. I think it'll be on display this weekend.
So there you go. We'll turn our attention back to Georgia before we're all said and done. There was no over-under posted for last week's game, but this week's game against only slightly better competition, there's at least a posted total out there, so we'll talk about that before we're done. Let's turn our attention now to the slate of rivalry games in the SEC, and admittedly, by the time you see this show, this game will have already been played. We do pre-record Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews during the week, but it's just too much fun not to pick. It's the Egg Bowl back on its traditional Thanksgiving night date as Mississippi State, who's become a little bit of a hot team as of late, host Ole Miss. Ole Miss has the better ranking in the college football top 20 playoff top 25, but Mississippi State, in part because of the fact they get to play the game in Starkville, do find themselves as a 1.5 favorite here, 1.5 point favorite against Ole Miss. So one of the great fun rivalries in the SEC, Mississippi State hosting Ole Miss. As I said, Bulldogs 1.5 point favorites. Mike, what do you think about the Egg Bowl?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, particularly this year. I think both these teams are both better than I thought they would be, frankly. I think Mississippi State is playing better. But I always go back to that handle the moment thing with them. And, they lost at home to Louisiana State earlier this year. They didn't play particularly well against Alabama. I feel like Ole Miss was looking ahead last week in their game against Vanderbilt when Vanderbilt covered. So I'm going to go against what I'm seeing is the flow out there, and I'm going to take Ole Miss.
So Mike takes Ole Miss on the road, a little Egg Bowl slide upset he calls for there. Jeff Sintel, what do you think about the Rebels and the Bulldogs?
Yeah, I still think Ole Miss is kind of banged up. Nothing newsworthy there, but I just really like the way Mississippi State is playing. I like the way that Will Rogers is completing the ball. He's kept throwing for a lot of touchdowns. Anytime a young man has like 75, 76, 77% completion in the SEC, that catches my eyes. I'm going to take Mississippi State with this one.
Connor, what do you think? Mississippi State, 1.5 point favorite at home.
This is a general principle game. You would think Ole Miss would be the higher because of their higher ranked team. They'd be the favorite. They are not. I think Mississippi State is playing better. I think Lane Kiffin has his eye on a certain job down there in South Florida that might come open rather soon. You've already heard Matt Corral say he's leaving. This will be his last Egg Bowl. I like the way this Mississippi State team has played in recent weeks. I've rode them to a couple of nice wins there, which is probably the difference in the standings right now. So give me the Cowbells. Give me the Mississippi State Bulldogs to win the Egg Bowl by at least 2 points on Thursday. And I cannot wait for the best rivalry in college football to be played back on Thanksgiving where it belongs.
So strong pick from Connor, and also totally in agreement on the opinion. This is what Thanksgiving's all about for me. It's a chance to see these two teams play what looks like almost like a Jerry Springer-style football game against each other. I just love it so much. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, pretty evenly split on this. You got 54% on the side of Ole Miss, but that's almost a coin flip as far as our audience sees that. And, I agree with what a lot of our panelists have said here thus far, that a lot in the way of momentum seems to be on the side of Mississippi State here. Ole Miss did not cover last Saturday against Vanderbilt. Lane Kiffin was a little bit critical of the crowd there that day. He didn't think that the Rebels fans showed up very well to support Ole Miss there in that spot in the regular season home finale. On the Mississippi State side of things, you've got Steve Spurrier, the former Heisman Trophy winner at Florida, saying that he would kind of tout Will Rogers as his own Heisman pick here right now. That's how well the Bulldogs quarterback is playing. You've also had some weirdness with Lane Kiffin seemingly downplaying this rivalry a little bit, talking about how there was no reason to hate someone just because they go to a different school or come from a different place, almost like he actually has one foot out the door on his way to Miami, downplaying the Egg Bowl. Everything because of the recent chatter and recent momentum would seem to speak to Mississippi State here and not Ole Miss, and yet I still can't help the opportunity to take a contrarian stance when I have a chance to. So I'm going to go Ole Miss here with the facts kind of arguing for Mississippi State. I'm going to go on the side of Ole Miss because I'm just kind of on guard for whatever the strangest possible outcome to occur in the Egg Bowl would be. Ole Miss winning this game, despite the ranking, Ole Miss winning the game right now feels like a slightly stranger outcome. So I'll actually go on the side of the Rebels. Maybe a pick I live to regret, but it is my pick. Going on the road, getting in the win, perhaps the final game, at least from a regular season standpoint for Lane Kiffin there with the Rebels, but I think it comes as a win in the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. The flow, though, is on the side of – actually, I'm not even sure. Dari, let's say you want to go with the flow and take Ole Miss. You want to go with the flow here on this one?
No, I'm going to retract my statement I made last week where I said I was going to take Ole Miss no matter what the spread was. I'm actually going to take Mississippi State at home. They're playing too well coming into the game. Their Bulldogs are healthy, and they have the 7th-ranked run defense, which I think gives them the advantage going in here right now.
So fun game. As I said, our audience will have already seen this game by the time they see this show, but we just like the Egg Bowl around here. We wanted to make that pick. Another game that's holiday weekend, but it's the day this show airs. Traditional Friday after Thanksgiving spot for Arkansas. For many years, this was the battle for the Golden Boot against LSU. In recent years, it's turned into a game against Missouri, and Arkansas, after fighting against Alabama and earning a cover in Tuscaloosa last Saturday, gets a chance to host a Missouri team that's feeling pretty good about itself, getting a win against Florida last week, but a big underdog here going to the Natural State against the Razorbacks. Hogs, a 14.5-point favorite here in this spot. Mike Griffith, what do you think about Arkansas hosting Missouri? The number is 14.5.
That hook is just enough for me to take the Tigers to cover as an underdog.
So sweet and to the point there by Mike Griffith. Jeff Sintel, how about for you?
No hook for me, no worries at all. I like what Pittman said after the game for his rationale about trying to give his boys a chance to win the game. I think the 14.5-point spread does not deter me. Give me the fighting Pittmans in this one.
Connor Riley, break the tie.
This Arkansas team has been good against the number in recent weeks, and because of that, I'm going to continue to ride them. Though I am a little concerned. I think Arkansas plays to the level of its competition. Played up last week against Alabama, played down the week before against LSU. But I think winning an 8th game here means a lot to Sam Pittman and what he is building there, whereas Missouri's already gotten to its bowl game. So give me Arkansas here, minus 14.5.
So Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, no surprise, they're all over Sam Pittman, 81% like Arkansas to cover the number, but 14.5 is just too much for me. Now, I'm on guard for a Missouri letdown after the emotional win against Florida last week. I'd be surprised if Arkansas outright lost this game, but 14.5 is just a lot of points. And frankly, a year ago, these two teams played. I didn't think Arkansas played well in that game at all. Missouri moved the football with ease last season. That's still on my mind here a little bit. So to me, 14.5 is enough of a cushion that you can call for the cover without having to worry about the better team losing, which I don't believe the Razorbacks are going to do. But Missouri plus the 14.5 seems like a little bit of a bargain. So that puts the flow on the side of Arkansas, though. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Arkansas here?
Let me just open this nice, tasty, cold beverage.
There you go.
Here in honor of Missouri, not only beating Florida, but sending Dan Mullen's packing.
Yeah, you love that. By the way, going back to the old days for Sam Pittman there at Pittsburgh State, the famous photo of him with the beer cooler next to his feet. I'm sure if old Coach Pittman was here right now, he'd be happy to pop the top of one of those with you as well.
Yeah, definitely. He'll probably be upset, though, because I'm going to take Missouri here. I like what they're doing. I think, Arkansas played a great game last week, but I think Missouri's kind of finding a little groove. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people think.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised by the number myself. I like Arkansas. I think Arkansas has proven itself to be a pretty good team. But boy, that's a lot of points in a situation like this, especially given the recent history between the two teams. Another game made more interesting, as Dari Payro said, by the firing of Dan Mullen. A battle for bowl eligibility between Florida and Florida State. And there you see a nice look at Dan Mullen. Maybe one of the reasons why he got fired was the fact that he dressed like Darth Vader in the aforementioned game against Missouri a year ago, something that was definitely on Eli Drinkwitz's mind when the Tigers got that win last week. But as it turns out, it's not Mullen coaching here on this Saturday. It's Greg Knox, former running backs coach, who steps into the role of interim coach here. Florida State also, as I said, trying to find its way to a 13th game. They go to Gainesville. Florida, 3-point favorite here in this spot, a much lower spread than you would have ever imagined with these two teams way back in the summer, but that's how a season can unfold for you. So it's an in-state rivalry. It's Florida, Florida State. Bobby Bowden or Steve Spurrier walking through the door on this one, though. This is a very different version of this rivalry than the glory days of the 1990s. But nonetheless, Mike, what do you think? Gators as a 3-point favorite against the Seminoles.
Yeah, way back when Florida opened as a 10-point favorite, just to tell you how much money is being bet on Florida State here. And that always scares me when the line drops that much and it looks like Vegas might take a bath. The fact that this game's in the swamp, I'll tell you, man, I have gotten burned so bad on my Florida picks this year that I'm going to do what Dari was talking about earlier. I'm going to flip. I'm going to fade myself on Florida, and even though I had Florida written down, I'm going to take Florida State just because I've been so wrong about the Gators lately.
So Mike on the side of Mike Norvell and the Seminoles. With that in mind, Jeff Sintel, and by the way, another look at a very silly season for Florida, celebrating after the win against Samford. Closer than it should have been win against Samford, so plenty of reason to think that there's good reason that Dan Mullen now finds himself in the unemployment line. But nonetheless, Jeff Sintel, for you, Florida's a 3-point favorite against Florida State.
Yeah, I'm just trying not to laugh from seeing that video again, guys. I'm going to go Florida State. I think momentum is huge here. I think the Florida State Seminoles are cooking up something with winning a lot of games out of the last 5 or 6. The big win over Miami was a pretty big reversal of what that team looked like last year. Jermaine Johnson, other guys like that. I think I think Florida State's trying to become a program that will attract a lot of guys in the portal, a lot of guys from SEC schools as well. Give me Florida State to win this one.
Connor, it's a little bit of Noel love here right now. What do you think about that?
I'm going to keep it that way, even though I'm worried all of us are going to take Florida State and Florida's going to find a way to win this game. But Vegas is telling you that on a neutral field, Florida and Florida State are even. I think with the way Florida State is playing right now, winners 5 of their last 7. Florida, they just want the season to be over with. If you're giving me the points there, I'll take them because I think Florida State wants this game more than Florida does. So give me the Noles here, +3.
So Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they're, even though Mullen's not coaching anymore, they're still going hard against Florida. 79% take Florida State here in this spot. And I'm going to be honest with you. This game features almost no analysis for me whatsoever because everything, Florida's been playing terrible on the field. They have no coaches left. Connor's 100% right. The best that we can tell, they don't even want to play the game. There's just no level of motivation whatsoever for the Gators. There is no argument for Florida at all, yet they're still favored. And being at home alone, not Home Alone the movie, but the fact that they are at home alone should not be enough to make them be that way. I think this is the betting houses kind of telling you all you need to know, that contrary to all reasonable expectations, Florida is still the favorite. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to take Florida here against my better judgment. But when there's this much screaming for Florida State, and yet the Gators are still the favorite, I'm going to trust those palaces to know what they're talking about here. So give me Florida minus the 3. Flow, though, on the side of Florida State. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Noles?
Well, the Seminoles are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games played in the Swamp. However, I'm going to take Florida. This looks like a team that's just everything is unraveling. They're free falling. I actually like them to get this win and say not so fast to the Seminoles, who desperately want this win. Both these teams and these players, I mean, this rivalry is deep. These players that are there, dude, they hate Florida State. Florida State's hate the Gators. They're going to be passionate in this game. I think Knox is going to get them fired up as a new coach. I think that fire's been lit, and usually it has a way of kind of motivating players on the field. So I like the Gators at home.
Iron Bowl now, Auburn hosting Alabama. Of course, the big story everyone knows, Auburn's won its last 2 against Alabama in its own stadium, 2017 and then again in 2019 there as well. Of course, Auburn this time will have to do it without the quarterback that led them there in 2019, as Bo Nix dealt with a season-ending injury a couple of weeks ago. TJ Finley, the quarterback now in place for Auburn. Of course, Auburn dropped a game in pretty odd fashion last Saturday to South Carolina on the road. Alabama withstood the big effort from Arkansas to get the win, but not the cover against the Razorbacks. Alabama, though, did clinch the SEC West in the process, and now going on the road as a 19.5-point favorite against Auburn. Mike Griffith, you'll be there. What do you think about the Iron Bowl?
Yeah, it's the best college football rivalry, really maybe the best rivalry in all sports. When you've got one state, no pro sports, nothing but college football and 2 championship programs from years past, it just leads to an environment that's not matched by anything. Therefore, there's a part of me that wants to go with Auburn to keep this close, just because, as you referenced, BA, Auburn has not lost at home since 2015. Alabama has won, I believe, 3 national championships since they last beat Auburn on the Plains at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Here's the stat. I'll give it away so Connor can get this one right. You know, he picks, last. That's a big advantage.
Third.
Alabama
picked third, Mike.
Okay, same difference. Alabama picks 5th. Alabama ranks 5th in the nation in run defense. I don't think Auburn can do anything if Tank Bigsby can't get it going. And so I am going to pick Alabama to cover in the Iron Bowl.
Jeff, what do you think? 19.5 is the number.
Not scared of that number. I will use this opportunity to just at least honor the names of 2 great men who covered both of these programs. Cecil Hurt, the longtime iconic beat writer for the Tuscaloosa News, has passed away this week. We know that. Also, Charles Hollis, a gentleman that also covered both of these programs in the state of Alabama for Birmingham News, other outlets as well as Time. Those men have both passed on. I'm curious to see what those guys are thinking about trying to pick this game tonight, this game this week from up above. That being said, I like Alabama in this one. This 19.5 points doesn't deter me. I think Bama's trying to get into that overdrive shape for the chase for the championship.
So both Jeff and Mike feeling good about Alabama right there, and it's obviously, as Jeff pointed out, a hard week there in the Yellowhammer State here this week, and so our prayers do go out there. But Connor, as far as your pick goes, what do you think about that?
Yeah, thoughts and prayers out to Cecil Hurt, a true institution in the state of Alabama. I like the Crimson Tide here big this week. That Auburn team laid down against South Carolina a week ago. I think Alabama knows it needs to tune itself up and get itself rolling going into the SEC championship game. I really don't think this Auburn team has a shot against this Alabama team, even against covering. I think the loss with Bo Nix is going to be too much to overcome for them.
Yeah, Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers agree with that there as well. 79% on the side of Alabama minus the big number. And, listen, look, Auburn's not played a great brand of football as of late, but, you're talking about road games where that was largely true. This is still a team that I feel quite strong about when it plays at home. And it's another one of those examples of this is a big number. Alabama could win relatively easy, and, Auburn could find its way on the inside of that number. It takes a lot for me to want to lay wood, and I'm just not laying this wood with Alabama, not knowing what Auburn has the power to be able to do at home. So from that standpoint, I know a lot of y'all have your kind of, sort of automatic type picks. For me, Auburn at home is pretty close to an automatic type pick. They're not a guaranteed cover there, but boy, they cover a lot. And so with that in mind, I'll take a flyer on them plus the 19.5 here. However, the flow decidedly in the direction of Alabama. Dari Payroll, you want to go with the flow and take Alabama in this particular spot?
Well, they haven't been as good as years past against the spread.
Fair.
For Bama this year, it's just kind of middle of the row. Auburn's kind of free falling like Florida. It's kind of unraveling. For some reason, I think they may rise up in this game and kind of muster something together. 19.5 for this rivalry game is a lot of points. The home team has won 8 of 9 in this rivalry straight up. So, considering that fact in history, and you have a point spread at 19.5, it makes it kind of a little fishy and crazy. However, I'm going to stay disciplined, and I'm going to take Bama.
Okay.
So I'm taking them to still cover, even with the large point spread.
Speaking of large point spreads, we've got one of those in Knoxville on Saturday as the Vols host Vanderbilt as a 31.5 point favorite. We'll just jump right into this. Mike, what do you think about Tennessee here? Big number against the Commodores.
Yeah, a lot of momentum for Tennessee. I'm going to take Tennessee to cover.
Jeff Sintel, how about for you? 31.5 is the number there, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I've lots of things going on here at the home compound. I'm going to go with in this one. I'm not afraid of the number here with Tennessee, but I am noticing that Vanderbilt is playing a lot of teams close, playing very well, and generally being anti-Vanderbilt of late during the season. That's why I'm going to take these points, and I'm going to go with the Commodores.
Okay. So you are taking. Okay, yeah, that was a little bit of a swerve. So Jeff takes Vanderbilt plus the 31.5. Split decision here thus far. Connor, break the tie.
I'm going to go with Tennessee here. I agree with Jeff. A lot of what he is saying, this Vanderbilt team has proven me wrong. I took them last week to cover, and they came through for me. But this Tennessee offense, a lot of people like South Alabama last week, and Tennessee's offense just blew them off the field. And I think there's a chance we see that happen again here, and it just becomes so hard for Vanderbilt to keep up. So give me Tennessee here, even with that massive 31 and a hook.
Yeah, 62% of Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers on the side of the Vols. And kind of back up what Jeff was also saying, Vanderbilt's actually covered in 3 straight games and 4 of its last 5, including last week on the road at Ole Miss. It's been kind of my age-old adage that I kind of like Vanderbilt with the points more on the road than when they're at home. They're on the road here as well. And I just think 31.5 is kind of a lot of points. I kind of get, obviously, why Tennessee's the big favorite. But Vanderbilt, you can joke if we want, but they have been playing a little bit better as of late. Enough for me to at least consider them plus the 31.5. In fact, I'll do more than consider them. I'll take them plus the 31.5. That puts the flow on the side of Vanderbilt, believe it or not. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the doors?
No, I mean, this is a big number, and I get Vanderbilt starting to play a little bit better. I think more teams are just kind of resting a lot of their players against them, so it's kind of a combination of that. But Tennessee puts up points. The offense likes to put up points, and they're definitely going to want to rack up points against Vanderbilt this weekend.
All right, so
Tennessee.
Oh, there you go. So that now we'll turn our attention to the next game in the SEC. Fun rivalry that's kind of grown as of late. This is one of those made-for-TV rivalries when Texas A&M first joined the SEC that's actually become a true, genuine rivalry. Plenty of hatred on both sides here. Obviously, a lost season for LSU. The final game of the Ed Orgeron era comes up on Saturday against those Aggies. LSU at home, and once again, boy, you talk about an example of just how bad the year has been. LSU finding itself as a fairly sizable home underdog one more time. This time 6.5 to the Aggies. Mike Griffith, once again, we are turning our attention to you.
Yeah, this is another one I could go either way on. I just can't help but note the irony if Ed Orgeron were to were to win this game over the coach who just signed an extension for $9.4 million. Sometimes, back in the days of covering NASCAR, I'd always imagine what would be the wildest and craziest finish. And it seems like sometimes it came true. So part of me sees Ed Orgeron getting carried off the field, beating Texas A&M. So I'm going to take LSU just because I think that would be quite the sight.
To LSU's credit, has not given up on this season. They fought hard seemingly each and every week. Jeff Sintel, you haven't given up either. So what's your thought on A&M and the Tigers?
Yeah, I'm always a sucker for sentimentality and a storyline that Mike offers up there, but I just can't go with it. Give me the Aggies here. I'm not scared of the 6.5. I think Texas A&M will restore a lot of the order to the universe and this happy feel good for the Fighting Orgerons.
Another split decision from our riders. So Connor Riley, another chance for you to break the tie.
This line stinks. It's very fishy to me. A&M should be a double-digit favorite in this game, even with the home field advantage there at LSU. But Zach Calzada has not been great these last couple of weeks. That Ole Miss game was very telling for them. I came in here ready to pick Texas A&M, but I just think that line is too weird. And because of that, give me LSU. I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink at them in this game and maybe do what they did to Bama, pressure Calzada, make that offense tough to get going. And I don't think A&M is going to score a whole lot of points. So because of that, give me LSU here plus 6.5 in Orgeron's swan song. And they're playing for a bowl game as well, which I believe they would go play in with Ed Orgeron there. So I like that factor in there as well.
63% of Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers on the side of Texas A&M. And this is one of those things where I agree with a lot of what Connor said, that it's another one of those lines where you feel like the betting houses are trying to tell you something, but ultimately, even if they are, I don't feel like I have a choice in listening to that. I have just vouched for A&M too much to not go against them here against a lame duck coach and what could be his last game. And Mike points out the irony if A&M were to lose to LSU in this spot, just given the way in which these two schools have been connected. I think if you're me and you've kind of argued for A&M being a little bit of a program on the rise, I've got no choice but to take them right here. I actually don't feel great about it, just given all the circumstances. But to me, my opportunity to choose LSU went away a long time ago. So I've got to take A&M here in this spot. I'd be a coward if I didn't. So I'll take them, and that puts the flow slightly on the side of Texas A&M here. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Aggies?
The line stands out. I mean, when you first look at it, it looks so easy to take Texas A&M. That's like an easier ones of the day. But to me, that's really fishy. And when it smells fishy, you go the other way. It's actually one of my favorite picks of the week. I actually love LSU, not only to cover, but to win this game. They're the home dog, but they are going to win this game.
Wow, that's a big pick, and that would be quite an outcome that would have a lot of folks talking, just given the fact that Jimbo Fisher's been connected to the LSU job, also a program that had a lot of accolades at the beginning of the season, certainly something I contributed to. So that result would certainly have a lot of folks talking. A less notable game takes place across the country, halfway across the country in the Commonwealth, as Louisville hosts Kentucky. Cardinals from the ACC, 3-point favorite against a Kentucky team that was at once riding high, but never really the same after losing to Georgia a few weeks ago. So with that in mind, Kentucky, Louisville, this is also a rivalry known as the Governor's Cup, which is the same as the official nickname for Georgia and Georgia Tech. But nonetheless, Louisville giving 3 to Kentucky is it still Papa John's Stadium? Maybe it's not anymore. Either way, Louisville, Kentucky, Louisville's 3-point favorite. Mike, what do you think?
Well, Calipari's got the Cats playing pretty good now. The backcourt, Severe Wheeler and Ty's got that. Oh, football.
Yes.
Football and a basketball. I'm sorry. I got a little confused there.
Sure.
Are we still talking about Kentucky football this time of year? Yes, we are. And they're going to beat Louisville outright. Give me the Wildcats.
There you go. Jeff, what do you think about Kentucky and Louisville?
I like Kentucky to win this one with not much left else to say. Maybe this is an SEC bias pick here right there, but I'm going to take the Wildcats to win this one.
Connor, Riley, what do you think? Louisville is a 3-point favorite.
Same thing as Jeff. Malik Cunningham is going to give maybe Kentucky some problems, but unless Will Levis really just eats a banana with the peel on it and stinks and puts mayo in his coffee, give me Kentucky here to win.
Boy, I tell you what, this is one of those that makes me nervous because 63% of Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers on the side of the Wildcats. I don't have a reason to go against them either. I'm not going to force myself to be contrarian here, but yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton on this game, to be honest with you, but Kentucky feels like the right side. It feels very wrong to be the last one in on a full house, though, on the Wildcats, but that's what I'm going to be. Dar, you have a chance to go against us all here, but do you want to go with the flow and take Kentucky?
Absolutely. I mean, this game can kind of go either way, but I like Kentucky. Louisville's 1-5 in their last 6 against the SEC opponent. So I like Kentucky to win this game.
So next game, another one of those SEC, ACC rivalry affairs, sees a Clemson team suddenly playing better football, also getting a little healthier there too, with the exception of wide receiver Justin Ross, after getting a big win last Saturday against Wake Forest. Now gets ready to go to Columbia against a South Carolina team that's really been better than almost anyone would have assumed Shane Beamer had a right to be in year one, getting high-profile wins against both Auburn last week, against Florida a few weeks before that, and now the chance at what for Gamecocks fans would be the biggest of them all against the Clemson Tigers. However, they do find themselves facing a sizable point spread. 11.5 is the number in favor of Clemson at Williams-Brice Stadium. Mike Griffith, what do you think about Clemson and South Carolina?
Yeah, there's no way South Carolina is going to win this game. The question is, does Clemson cover? And I think they do. I think that Clemson found something. I mean, it's been a disappointing campaign by Clemson standards, albeit they're back in the top 25 and one of their losses is to the number 1 team in the nation. But still, I feel like Clemson found something. And I said it last week that Dabo Swinney's program has an element of greatness that goes beyond just the talent on the field. I kind of feel like a little bit of that might be coming back. South Carolina poses enough of a threat to get everyone's attention. And so I'm going to say the clock strikes midnight on the Gamecocks Cinderella run, and I'm going to take the Tigers to win impressively and cover.
So that is Mike on the side of Clemson. Jeff Sintel, what do you think about the Tigers and the Gamecocks? Number's 11.5.
Yeah, there's a lot of flow on this one. I guess I don't think anybody, maybe the Brandon Adams doppelganger for Gamecock Daily, probably wouldn't have predicted a Clemson win, an Auburn win, and a Florida win in this season, no matter how fervent the passion goes there. I think this screams to me in a season where a lot of these games feel like shaky bridges to put your foot out there on. This game screams to me very close game. That being said, I look for Clemson not to cover, Clemson to win, but I think this will be a one-score football game.
So, Connor, what do you think about Clemson and South Carolina Gamecocks getting 11.5 at home?
I think Clemson's offensive output last week said more about Wake Forest's defense than necessarily Clemson's offense. And this South Carolina team, they've played well at home. They only gave up 17 to Florida there when a lot of us thought that was still a Florida team that was interested in playing football this season. They hold Auburn to 17 a week ago. Would not surprise me if they hold Clemson to 17. Having said all that and thinking I was just about to pick South Carolina, I think this Clemson defense is still pretty great. And I've reminded myself that they're entering this game with a third-string quarterback. So great story this year from Shane Beamer. Great year they've had there, exceeding expectations. But give me Clemson here, minus 11.5.
The funny thing is, the third-string quarterback they're playing has probably played better than the other two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I think he probably should have just been the starter all year long anyway. But in fairness, I don't know that Clemson could have known that he was going to play as well as he did. Our audience is as split on this as we've seen. Only 52% on the side of Clemson here, but that's enough to give them the margin there among Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers. I'll admit this is a little bit of a wishful thinking pick for me because I do think it'd be fun if this game were closer. And I kind of like some of what Shane Beamer's doing at South Carolina right now. I think some people kind of think he's a little bit of a phony, but I kind of enjoy some of what he's doing here at this particular time. I do think if the last time you saw Clemson was the game against Georgia, I think that Clemson's playing a better brand of football than you may have remembered. If you want to go back near the beginning of the season, they're also a little healthier than they were at one point in time, getting some playmakers back on offense. It's not an easy game to pick. I'm going to say this right now. This is a tough game to pick, but I do think there's a justifiable case for South Carolina plus the 11.5 here, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'd be shocked if they were to win the game, but 11.5 is not a small number to play with. So that's enough for me to consider the Gamecocks here. I'm guessing Williams-Brice Stadium is going to be really, really loud for this one. So I think it should be and could be very, very fun. I'll take South Carolina. That puts the flow on the side just slightly on the no, it doesn't. Slow flow just slightly on the side of Clemson. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Clemson?
Yeah, I'm going to take Clemson. Again, I think they have some momentum. I think they're going to try to close out the year on a strong note. It's a tricky game to pick where the spread's at. But looking at historicals, when I go, in between the rivalry, they haven't played a game less than double-digit victories since 2007. So I don't think this is going to be something where it's a single-digit type game. So I lean Clemson with that because they have the better talent, they have the better defense, and I think that will be the difference in them for them to score enough and kind of shut the Gamecocks down.
Two biggest games in the country on Saturday are outside the SEC. We'll turn our attention to those right now. Ohio State going to Michigan here. Ohio State obviously blew out, and I mean blowed out Michigan State last week, 49-0. That game was the half. Two consecutive covers against ranked opponents now for Ohio State with the Purdue game the week prior to that. Michigan has gotten less attention than Ohio State, but it's been quietly been a part of the discussion all year long. They are an underdog, though, at home. 7.5 is the number. This is a big one. Huge TV audience expected to tune in. What will they see, Mike Griffith? Ohio State, Michigan. What's your pick?
Yeah, Ohio State's been really impressive, and they drilled Michigan State. Michigan State, worst pass defense in the country, I think. I think Michigan matches up much better. I think playing the game in Ann Arbor is a big advantage for Michigan. And while I don't think Michigan will win, I do think they will cover the spread.
So that is Mike on the side of the Michigan Wolverines. Jeff Sintel, how about for you?
Yeah, that's the rivalry. That team up north is what the Buckeyes like to call Michigan. I think the spread in this game might be somewhere around 4 or 5 points per quarter. That's a conservative estimate for me. I think Ohio State is gearing up for something more purpose to their season. You just look at the players that have been coming in here, and Ohio State is far out kicking and out distancing what the Wolverines are doing. And the games relatively haven't been close in this rivalry whatsoever. So give me Ohio State, lay those points. I'm fine with it. Go Buckeyes here.
Connor Raleigh, how about you? Number 7.5 for Ohio State going to Michigan.
It's hard. If I weren't in first place, I'd pick Michigan here, say it's an upset special. Love what this Michigan team has done this year. Harbaugh, even if he loses this game, is going to get crushed, but I think he's done a really outstanding job getting this team to 10 wins and being a real factor in the college football playoff race late in the year as it is. But I just think this Ohio State team is too good, and they own Michigan. I'm going to make a similar pick in the Bedlam game. Until I see Michigan actually do it, I'm going to be skeptical that they're able. So give me Ohio State minus 7.5 here.
Yeah, skeptical, a good word for it as far as Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers are concerned. 83% on the side of Ohio State, despite the fact that Michigan's really been pretty good this season. And I do mean that. I think that Michigan's been a pretty good team here this year. In fact, had they not lost to Michigan State, I think there's a pretty interesting playoff discussion going on. Now, listen, I think that Michigan's still kind of an outside part of that discussion regardless of the result on Saturday. But, man, it could be far different had they found a way to beat Sparty a few weeks prior. But Ohio State really right now has the look of a team that's truly turned the corner. We wonder if Alabama would. Well, last week against Arkansas kind of didn't. On the other hand, Ohio State clearly did, and you start to add that to recent results, and you see maybe a pattern start to form here. I've taken a lot of underdogs here this week. I've earned the right, I believe, to take a favorite, and right now, what better favorite to take than Ohio State? On the road, yes. Michigan, pretty good, yes, but boy, I like riding this steam with this Buckeyes team here at the moment, so I'll take them on the road minus the 7.5. Dari, that puts the flow on the side of the Buckeyes. You want to join that?
No, I'm going to go with Big Blue, Michigan. If not now, then when? I mean, this is it right here.
There you go. No, I mean, that's a pretty succinct way of saying it, but also a true one there, too. Another huge rivalry, another game with playoff implications. This one from the Big 12, a league that's has its playoff hopes probably hanging by a thread, but the two teams involved in this game, Bedlam as it's known, are the two teams on which those playoff hopes will rest. Oklahoma State, 7th in the playoff rankings here this week, hosting Oklahoma. The Cowboys, a 3.5-point favorite here against the Sooners. Mike, what do you think about Oklahoma and Oklahoma State?
Yeah, most years I would just defer and to Oklahoma, just because they've dominated it for so long, and they're a program that's they go in with expectations, and there's a lot to be said for your team expectations. But this Oklahoma State team plays defense, guys. They rank 3rd in the nation in total defense, and I'm going to go with Oklahoma State to win this game, and I expect everyone to follow suit after I just gave you that nice little nugget on their defensive stat, except for Connor, because he's already said he's going to pick Oklahoma.
So Mike takes Oklahoma State, pats himself on the back in the process. Jeff Sintel, what do you think?
I think there's too much dysfunction, and as Griffith astutely pointed out, lack of defense regarding the Sooners. Quarterback play, Oklahoma State needs this one more than they have in years. Give me the Pokes to win this one. I'm liking Oklahoma State, my second straight OSU pick. Give me the Cowboys here.
For Michael Carvel, our producer who keeps track of these games, the fact that there's multiple games involving OSU this week is probably not going to be the easiest thing to keep tab of. But nonetheless, a little bit of love for Pistol Pete here right now. Connor, what do you think about that?
You put both these teams on a neutral field with no logos, colorless jerseys. Yeah, you would say Oklahoma State is the better football team. But when you put that logo on, I'm not picking against Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. In a game against Oklahoma State, Oklahoma has showed us they are not a serious football team this year. I actually think that's why even if they win the Big 12, they're not really a threat to make the college football playoff. But it's similar to the Michigan pick I made a few minutes ago. Until I see Oklahoma State do it, I'm going to pick Oklahoma here, and I think that's going to continue. So even though I think Oklahoma State is the better team, I think Oklahoma finds a way to get the win in this game. And so obviously I will be taking them plus 3.5.
Yeah, brand recognition, I think, on the side of the audience here, too. 78% of Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they, too, take the Sooners. Here's two quick points I want to make. And this is really important for those who do truly want to gamble on games, do more than just watch them on television. I think you got to understand that storylines involving teams evolve over the course of a year. Things are different in November than they were in October frequently, and small changes can make a big difference. And here's one of the things I want to point out. That while everyone's paying attention to Oklahoma on the offensive side of the ball and what Caleb Williams has done, what Spencer Rattler has done, and all that kind of stuff, and for all the attention the Oklahoma State defense has gotten, very quietly, Oklahoma's playing a little bit better defensively than it was the beginning of the year. I mean, I'll give you a couple numbers here. Oklahoma allowed 31 or more points in 4 of its first 7 games this season, but allowing an average of just 23 points in its last 3 games. Now, overall, Oklahoma hasn't necessarily played great in its last 3 games, but a lot of that's been its inability to score points, what we typically think of as a Sooner-related clip. Beginning of the year, the talk of what Oklahoma had done defensively in 2020 completely evaporated. Sooners are playing actually a little bit better on defense right now. When you're talking about a relatively small number, as a 3.5-point underdog going into Stillwater on Saturday, that's enough for me to trust the team that, for the most part, always wins in this rivalry anyway. So I'll take Oklahoma plus the 3.5, and I actually believe it's the Sooners' defense that might be the reason that I feel that way. So, Dari, that puts the flow on the side of Oklahoma. You want to go with the flow and take OU.
No, I'm going to take the Cowboys at home. Their defense has been dominant this year. That's going to carry them to victory and a cover.
So we'll go back to Georgia Tech to close things out here today. The number sits at 54.5. Georgia has been a rubber stamp, really just a rocking chair under as of late, very easily sailing underneath that expected point total, but as a big favorite, not always easy to do that with Georgia Tech looming there on Saturday. So, Mike, what do you think about 54.5?
Didn't they hit the over against Tennessee?
Did they? Yeah, I guess you're probably right. They did.
They did against Tennessee.
Yes.
All right. Well, because it's Georgia Tech, because Kirby remembers his senior day losing to Georgia Tech, because they need to get their passing game off the ground, they need to be thrown in the fourth quarter to get some momentum going. I'm going to take Georgia to hit the over with the massive blowout of Georgia Tech. Irish won 55-0. Kirby's going to challenge his guys to win by more.
So 54.5 there is the number. Jeff Sintel, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a big number. And one of the things we've noticed with Georgia this year is the confidence picks you have in Georgia. Beating his chest, coming out like a rabid dog, doesn't really always work out in terms of the huge confidence number of points. That having been said, I think Kirby Smart might do something like show him the Jasper Saints fumble game sometime on the bus ride over from Atlanta. I think there's just enough motivation there, enough Georgia stuff got to get right. I think Georgia, even if they roll in a lot of second and third team guys, that shows the huge differences between these two programs. Georgia Tech, I see this one going over.
Connor, what do you think about 54.5 for the over?
I think Georgia's going to score at least 55 on its own. While I love picking Georgia to cover and taking the under, I can't do that here. So give me Georgia over 54.5.
Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, 61% do take the. We've had closer vote totals here this week than we're used to. 61% do take the under. That's typically the popular play amongst UGA fans. Mike is right. The Tennessee game was the over. To be honest with you, this is like one of 100 shows we're recording today, so I don't have my typical level of research in front of me here for some of this. I'm kind of going off feel here a little bit today. I believe 54.5 would have also stood as an over the last time these two teams played in 2019. In fact, I think that game went over the total, breaking a long streak of unders there in 2019, if memory serves. But folks need to do their own research on that because, as I said, I don't have that in front of me here this week. But honestly, I'm going to keep going under on Georgia just because that's what's been working as of late. So I'll take the under. Flow on the side of the over. Dari Payroll, do you want to go with the flow and take over 54.5 for clean old-fashioned hate?
Yeah, I'm taking the over. Georgia Tech in their last couple of games has given up 55 points to Notre Dame. They gave up 41 to Boston College. That isn't that good. And they gave up 48 to Virginia. So I like this going over all day.
Yeah, it could be very interesting to see for sure. As
2019 was 52-7.
Yeah, so there you go. That's a little bit over. Of backstory in that there as well. Dari comes well armed with some good data on all of that, and it should be a fun week of rivalry games. Maybe not Georgia Tech in the center of all that, but certainly a part of what's going to be a huge day unfolding in and around the game known as clean old-fashioned hate. And, of course, if you want to settle in and enjoy the football and be able to watch it, obviously feeling good about the systems there in your house, they're flowing and functioning properly, that's a big part of that. That means if your water heater goes out, you can't take hot showers, the other folks in your household aren't going to be too happy about that. You can let them feel better and make them know everything's fine by trusting our friends at R.S. Andrews, because in many cases, R.S. Andrews can replace that water heater for you in the same day. So if something goes wrong here in this holiday weekend, R.S. Andrews is the one to turn to. Just find them online at rsandrews.com. They'll take great care of you with all of that. R.S. Andrews is also going to be a part of the chase for the championship here around Dog Nation as we head towards next Saturday there at the Home Depot backyard for our tailgate. Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the big game, so it's fun to have R.S. Andrews on the ride with us for that as well. Gentlemen, best of luck with your picks here this week. For all those of you who tune in and watch, best of luck for all of you there as well, and hopefully it'll be a week's worth of winners. And we'll see you again next time here on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. We will talk to you then, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you.